by in 3, 2, 1.
Reality. Are you living it?
You are a function of this total galaxy, bounded by the Milky Way, and that furthermore, this galaxy is a function of all other galaxies.
Our reality.
The show that will stretch your consciousness and awaken you to a world of unlimited possibilities. It's time to change the world. It's time for an awakening. It's time for Our Reality. Hosted by your emissary to planet Earth, Violeta Brankovic.
Hey everyone, happy Saturday and welcome to Our Reality, where every week we discuss relevant topics concerning our reality. And today we have a very, very special topic and two special guests. And the reason why it's so special is because the topic of conversation is going to be our dear icon, Britney Spears, the woman who has done so much for music industry, so much for women. And it's nice that we talk about what's going on with her. Now, for about 13 years now, Britney, and I had no idea, and maybe you didn't have an idea, but here it is. Britney has been under a conservatorship where she cannot make any decisions about her life for 13 years now. Her handlers, which include her father, are paid by the estate and in charge of her finances and her life. Now, Britney fully lost her privileges as an adult, which is sad, and she has expressed many, many times she feels trapped and scared, and she refuses to work until she's a free person again. And currently, we're working to free Britney. Now, my guests here, Megan Radford and Leanne Simmons. Megan is the marketing director, mom, and Free Britney advocate from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. She was a member of the original Free Britney movement in 2009 and immediately jumped back into action when the movement resurfaced in April 2019. She traveled from Oklahoma City to LA for a rally in January 2020, and the rest is history. Megan plans rallies, she produces Free Britney content, and more. And now Leanne Simmons, she's a post-production manager, a proud dog mom to Roxy, and a Free Britney advocate from Los Angeles, California. As a lifetime Britney fan and longtime supporter of the Free Britney movement, she became hands-on after attending her first Free Britney rally in July 2020. Since then, Leanne has attended every public court hearing in Britney's case and helps plan rallies and other events to further the movement. Welcome, girls. Thank you for being with me.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Yeah, so exciting. I mean, I just learned about this, like I told you, 3-4 weeks ago when I looked at Britney's IG and I said, oh my God, what is going on with our dear Britney? So can you take me through it or take us through it a little bit? What has happened to her?
Sure. So back in February of 2008, amid a lot of public scrutiny, and, we all remember the paparazzi kind of stalking Britney, and she had 2 young babies and was going through some personal struggles. And at that time, her father petitioned to put her under a conservatorship. As you explained at the start, Violeta, it's basically handing over all of her constitutional rights to her father. And so she has been under that for 13 years. It was presented as a temporary arrangement, but has continued. It was eventually made permanent. And she, at this point in time, her personal decisions are all given to a care manager who oversees that side of things. And then on the financial side, she also has her father and a bank that oversee all of her money. So at the end of the day, Britney can't make any decisions as small as, hopping in her car and driving to get coffee, or as big as signing a contract for a Las Vegas residency. All of those things technically are being done by her handlers. So at this point, Britney has indicated to the court, and we've always kind of felt as fans, since the very beginning, that Britney did not want to be in this arrangement. She was always, her father was kind of absent from her life in the early years, and they have a contentious relationship. So we are trying to be Britney's voice to speak up on her behalf, since she doesn't have that ability, and to make some change to this conservatorship. We know she doesn't want her father in control. And beyond that, we know that the conservatorship was never warranted. She never actually qualified for it, and the entire thing, in our opinion, should be dissolved.
Yes, yes. It seems very scary and it seems very unfair. Like, just from an emotional standpoint, when I first looked at her IG, you would think a conservatorship is something that would bring you, happiness or protection. But I looked at her IG and I said, you could tell that she's not happy. You could tell, my God, something awful is happening to Britney. And it's definitely not in her best interest. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it was corrupt from the beginning and violated her civil and constitutional rights from day one. If you're putting someone under a conservatorship, the conservatee is required to be given 5 days notice of the fact that they're being placed in a conservatorship. And the Los Angeles courts waived that right at the request of Britney's dad. So she was not notified. And there have been many other instances, like her court-appointed advocate her court-appointed attorney is the one who told the judge at the time that Britney didn't have the capacity to choose her own attorney, which is a huge conflict of interest because obviously he has a vested interest. Her court-appointed attorney can bill up to $10,000 a week to her estate.
Oh my God!
So it was a gross violation from the beginning. We don't know what was in the medical report, but we do know that court filings indicated that she had some sort of dementia-related illness, and she was 26 years old, and there's just no way that she had or has dementia.
I agree.
So it's definitely been a violation to her rights from the very beginning. And we're hoping that with the attention from the movement and the New York Times documentary that we can create more public pressure to get her out of it.
I agree. Thank you so much for being on her side and being her voice. And Leanne, you're right. Leanne said we are her voice. Megan is her voice. She needs that voice. And I'm so glad you're doing this. And thank you for mentioning the documentary. Indeed, to our listeners, there's a documentary that came out, like Meg just said. It was aired on FX, and it is available currently on Hulu. It's done by New York Times Magazine, and it's called Framing Britney. And and you girls are both in that documentary, I believe, correct?
Yes.
And I do believe she was framed. Like you said, it makes no sense. A woman, 26 years old, to have dementia. We've all seen Britney. We've all seen interviews. She is just fine. There was just maybe pressure from being, a superstar. Maybe she didn't get the right kind of support, but that doesn't mean that she's not going through something absolutely normal. That just love and support could it could be handled with more love and support. Yeah. And that's one thing that really stood out. It seemed that media vilified her back when she shaved her head, and that's how it all started, right?
Yes. If you look further back, it was even prior to that, but definitely that moment sticks in a lot of people's mind as the moment that she had a breakdown, or people like to say that's when she went crazy, and all of these really uncalled for, derogatory sort of phrases that I don't appreciate as a fan.
Yes, you're right. Mean, very mean.
Very mean, just very mean. And like you said, some love and support, maybe some time away from Hollywood, that would have helped Britney. The thing to remember is a conservatorship, especially probate, like Britney's under a probate conservatorship, that is meant as an absolute last resort for someone who cannot make their own decisions. They have a degenerative disease like Alzheimer's, dementia, or they're in a coma, or, they're developmentally disabled and need assistance. Britney did not qualify in any of those ways. So, we went from her just being alone and having no support to overnight, now she has zero rights. She cannot make her own decisions. And, for 13 years, that's going to have an effect on the person. She hasn't been able to be in control of herself since she was 26 years old. She's now 39.
That's terrible.
I think one of the things that bothers me the most is that the qualifiers for a conservatorship, which like Leanne said are meant as a last resort, are that a person cannot feed themselves, clothe themselves, or shelter themselves. And Britney can clearly do all of those things. And it was just weeks after she was placed into the conservatorship that she was working again. She was guest starring on How I Met Your Mother. She was recording an album and preparing for a tour. It's insane that they got away with this in front of everyone.
You're right. It's a clear setup. Like, it honestly, when I listen to it and when I hear about this case, it's a clear case to me. This is my personal opinion. It's a clear case of a setup where you have a woman who brings in cash and brings in profit, and you want to get in control of her just for that purpose by excusing it. It's an excuse that she's not capable. And that's a complete setup, I feel. And it's a complete lie about Britney. And it's complete unfairness. And you're right. It's, I think because it didn't get coverage, like I listened to news and I haven't heard of it. And I'm like, it's been 13 years. I had no idea. And especially because she had, we live here in Las Vegas, right? Like, a mile from me is Planet Hollywood. She was there. She was performing. Nobody knew. Nobody really had this conservatorship in their mind. But to me, it's more than imagine 26 years old that wasn't famous, didn't have any money, and she went through like some kind of breakdown. People would be like, yeah, okay, go rest and go back to normal. But because it's Britney, it's a big deal. Now we got to make a circus out of her and put her in a conservatorship so we can take control of her money. That's what it sounds like, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So sad, so sad. And she has still 2 kids there with Kevin, I believe, Kevin Federline.
She does, yes. Her son's now, what year are we in? What are they, 14 and 15, Meg? Correct me if I'm wrong. They're growing quickly. So, and it's kind of no secret that it's alleged that her children have been used many times as sort of a threat. Time with her children was threatened. Go along with what we're saying, Britney, or you can't see your kids, or that sort of thing. So, and anyone that knows Britney knows she's a mom at heart. She always has loved children long before she had them. Even as a 19, 20-year-old woman, she was saying, I can't wait to have children. So those boys are her light and life. And, I personally am not a mother, but from every mother who's a part of this movement, I hear the same thing. And I would be devastated. You'd have to lock me up in a padded room if you took my children. You have to consider what that does to a woman. And Britney had the added pressure of the media attention, and she was kind of estranged from her family, and she felt lonely. And now her kids are being used against her. Imagine what that is going to do to a woman.
It's terrible. It's terrible. I always thought about the persona and the personality, right? Her persona, her fame, and then personality, someone who's just, like you said, a mother, a normal human being, deserving of love, deserving of no mean words, deserving of, a second chance, of care, of all that. And she hasn't gotten that. Why? Because she's famous. Not fair. Not fair. Right? Yeah, it's completely. And you know what else concerned me when I saw her IG page? For someone who I was very successful professionally, had health issues, physical health issues, had an anxiety, was put on heavy drugs, and I lost my personality. And I was thinking to myself, I hope to God they're not giving her these meds, because me with a high IQ, I almost lost myself on meds, and I had to get off them. It changed me so much. And I was thinking to myself, I was praying, I was like, please, God, don't let them feed her those meds, because they will mess her up. And we don't want that.
It has definitely been speculated throughout the conservatorship that they have used medication to further their control of Britney. But obviously, we don't know that for sure.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. We can only speculate. But from a personal observation, that was my prayer, because I know that there are some heavy meds out there that can mess you up even if you're completely normal. But once you're off them, and I'm a living example, once you're off them, your brain repairs, you go back to normal. Again, if the person who is presiding over you or who is in charge of you, if it's not yourself, if they have your best interest in mind, then it's going to be done with love and care. So I watched the documentary, and I saw her father was not there for her in the beginning of her life. Was that true? Or he was out for quite a bit, and then he came out of nowhere?
Yeah, I think it was difficult for the family because Jamie Lynn was so much younger. So when Britney was gaining fame, the family was still back home in Louisiana for the most part. But yeah, Britney's mom, Lynn, had one of her friends kind of serve as Britney's chaperone. That's Felicia Coletta that you saw in the documentary. And then her mom was involved as much as she could be with having a young child at home. But yeah, you definitely didn't see much of Jamie. And if Lynn Spears wrote a book in 2008 called Through the Storm, where she talks about the young years, and it seems like a pretty bad situation. Jamie was an abusive alcoholic, and it didn't seem like a very good family life. They were extremely poor at times. He had failed business dealings and things of that nature. So it was actually in the several years leading up to the conservatorship, Britney was largely estranged from her family, which she's kind of alluded to the fact that it was because, she was tired of everyone living off of her. And so it was definitely interesting that he's the one that swooped in to, quote, save her when it was obviously clearly a setup to get access to her money.
I agree. That's exactly the feeling I'm getting, like, I'm going to cash in on this, that type of deal. And it's sad to say. And now, with the rest of her family, are they involved at all? Are they able to see her, or is everything going through her father again?
That's a great question. I don't know that we know all of those ins and outs. We do know that her mom has become more involved since 2019 with the conservatorship. She has asked to have access to Britney's medical record as her mother and as an interested party in this conservatorship. She also has some pretty high-powered lawyers from the state of Louisiana, where Lynn still lives, that are now taking an interest in the conservatorship as well. They haven't done anything on record. We haven't seen any filings by them or anything of that nature, but I think it's reassuring to a lot of us that her mom and her mom's attorneys are becoming more involved and hopefully can speak up in Britney's best interest, because out of the entire family, we know Britney was always close with her mother, and we do think that Lynn could be a great advocate for her and, is probably the biggest supporter of her daughter. As far as her siblings, her brother did do an interview last summer in which he said, Britney's always wanted out of this conservatorship. And he said some other things that have been taken, everyone has their own interpretation of things that he said. And we saw a couple of segments from him in the documentary as well. So it's really hard to say that whole situation there. As far as her father, we have heard in the courtroom, Britney's court-appointed attorney has said she has not spoken to Jamie in several months. And that may have been because the attorney told him to stay away. They're trying, Britney doesn't want to have to deal with her father. And right now it sounds like she might not be really in touch with anyone in her family except maybe her mom. But again, this is all just kind of speculation.
Sure. And it's a very unhealthy situation for her. A woman needs her mother. I know that. And I certainly hope that Britney's out of this situation soon. But really what's happened now, and I can't believe for 13 years, a lot of people didn't know about it. I bet you a lot of our listeners didn't know about it. I didn't know about it. It's surprising that for so many years it hasn't been covered by the media. It hasn't been really, hey, Britney's gotten her rights taken away, and I wonder why that is.
I personally think it's because a lot of media have been involved in her downfall. So, excuse me, we wrote her off. Not Leanne and I and the Free Britney movement, but a lot of people wrote her off as crazy. And so you had this image in your mind of bald Britney beating a Suburban with an umbrella, and that was kind of just your last memory of her. And so then when stories would pop up from time to time, I think the general consensus was, oh, well, she's crazy, so I'm sure that's good for her. So I think the media played a tremendous role, as you saw in the documentary, in the way that the public has perceived her. And it's really, that's one of the coolest things since the New York Times piece came out, is that we're seeing people who looked back through the lens of the documentary after Me Too, after Time's Up, and are realizing that the way that we treated Britney was incredibly unjust and unfair. And so the public perception has really started to shift. So my hope is now people will be more open to learning more about the conservatorship and realizing why it's so grossly inappropriate for Britney, and that public pressure will be powerful.
I hope so too, Leanne. I hope so too, Meg. Go ahead, Meg.
I think that it's also worth noting that Britney hasn't really been allowed to discuss the conservatorship. Any journalists or interviewers who have talked to her in the last 10 to 13 years have said they're given a very strict kind of script and outline of what they're allowed to ask. If they ask anything that's out of line, they will be, somebody will come in and say, you can't ask that. And that Britney seems to kind of, look off to the side and kind of lock eyes with some of her handlers to get approval with some of the things she's saying. And it sounds very contrived, very rehearsed when she's being interviewed. So the one time that we have heard by members of a studio audience who was at a talk show, the Jonathan Ross show, I believe it's a UK broadcast, they were there live, and Britney mentioned the conservatorship, and the talk show host instantly kind of changed the subject, and that part of the interview was cut and never aired on television. So, we started to realize that, hey, if Britney does try to discuss this, they tell her not to, and they cut it out. And because I believe that they did not want the general public to know she's still under this arrangement, because like Meg said, everyone kind of assumed she had her downfall. We know the conservatorship came in and people thought, oh, that saved her. Now she's great. She's back in Vegas. She's, doing amazing and selling out and all of this stuff. But that conservatorship of it all had kind of fallen off as far as the media. They were not reporting on it. So how could the general public know when it was never really being
discussed? You're right, Meg. It's incredibly unjust. Like me, when I fill out a situation or any person, I go into my feelings, and my feelings are saying it's incredibly unjust. It's incredibly unfair to Britney. I have gone through breakdowns in my life. We all have, right? And it's normal. It's normal. Why do we do this? Why do we do this to our celebrities? They're people. They're not made out of stone. And when I watched the documentary, and I'm so glad I watched it because it showed the moments leading up to her hitting the umbrella. I would have done the same thing. That guy was so in her face. I don't know. I probably would have slapped him too and punched him, and she didn't do that.
Yeah, right.
I'm trying to see my kids do. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, on a night when she was very frustrated because Kevin Federline wasn't allowing her to see her children, and the buildup of that, and then the paparazzi in her face, I think that really opened a lot of people's eyes to she wasn't just crazy with an umbrella. She was going through a lot, and she was being violated by that paparazzi.
Constantly violated, right? Correct. And constantly pictures in my face. How are you doing, Britney? You seem sad. Are you okay? Boom, boom, boom. And at the same time, I'm trying to be her and process the emotions. My God, I can't see my kids. I want to see my kids. I want to see my kids. And then this guy's on top of me, and they won't let me. And she's actually wanting him. Well, anyways, we're down to the break. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back discussing about our great star, Britney. We'll be right back, everyone.
And now, your emissary to planet Earth, the host of our reality, Violeta Frankovic.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to our reality, where today we're discussing, first of all, a wonderful mother, a woman, and an international superstar, Britney Spears. We have talked about the conservatorship that has been set up around her, in our opinion, in my opinion, to get to her money, not for her well-being. Documentary has come out on FX called Framing Britney, and I encourage you to watch it. This woman, this mother, this superstar, this human being needs our help, needs your voice to be heard, and needs us to really stand up for her. At this moment, Leanne, Simmons, and Meg are with us today, and we're discussing Britney. Now, Leanne, you did mention during the break, this is just a girl from Louisiana with a big dream. Let's humanize her, right? Let's treat her as a human being.
Absolutely. And I think that's what the documentary did very well, is remind people of where she came from. We saw her at 10, 11, 12 years old performing with that big voice and big dreams. And, we forgot when she was 18, 20, 22, that was still just a little girl who was skyrocketed to fame. And at the heart of it all, she's still just a human being. She was growing up. We can all, I think, empathize with that. We've all been 18, 20 years old and gone through our own battles. And I'm really just grateful that people are understanding that Britney Spears, the icon, underneath all of that is just little Britney Jean from Kentwood, Louisiana.
Mm-hmm. A woman, a normal woman.
Just a normal woman.
With normal dreams. And we were talking during the break, media has vilified her so much about her emotional reactions. And here I am saying that sometimes I have an insurance appointment and I feel an anxiety and I don't want to go. Or sometimes we just go through normal emotions, but it's so much harder when you're in the public eye. And then maybe you have an emotion like, you're a human being, you're supposed to. And then media takes it so out of control that you're crazy, this, that. Imagine if the media did this to any one of us. I would have been crazy between 26 and 35. I would have been on every newspaper as crazy. Things I've done,
Yeah, we talk about that a lot. Like we're, everyone as they grow up and just as they go through life has periods that are hard or does something they regret and that sort of thing. And most of us are allowed to have those moments privately, but Britney never was. And so it's definitely a different world for her. But then you also think about, she got a lot different treatment than a lot of other people. Like there are stars like Justin Bieber and Charlie Sheen and different people who had very public breakdowns as well, but they were allowed to recover from them and weren't placed in a conservatorship. And I think you could safely say that's because they're men. So
yes.
There's definitely a lot of different things at play here to get Britney to where we are today.
Yes, I agree 100% with you. I agree 100%. I've experienced it myself as I opened up my agency, a woman agency owner. Oh no, it was not a pretty sight. And I'm nobody, right? And imagine Britney. And I do believe that women still have a way to go to be just treated as with the same intelligence, same capabilities, and same responsibilities as a man. This is a part of it. Because after Madonna, I believe Britney was the biggest one. Like I don't believe we had anybody bigger than that. And
there is no other. There never
no
will
other.
be.
I know. And she was so great at what she did, and she still tries on IG to reach out from time to time. Not sure if she's controlling IG or if they're controlling it part and trying to seem like she's okay, but she's sending a clear message when she says, "I'm not going to perform until you set me free."
Exactly. Yeah. We are
so proud of her.
We don't like to speculate about her Instagram because, truth be told, we just don't know. I personally feel like a lot of it is manipulated by the team, but we don't know for sure. And we have in a court document that she's refusing to work until she's free. And so that's what we're going off of. There's so many cold, hard facts in this case that we try to avoid the speculation.
Got you. I respect that completely. I wanted to mention, and I remember that case with Justin Timberlake, again, when she was taken out of context and blamed publicly for maybe the breakup. That was hard on her. The Diane Sawyer interview. And I just want to say, hey, that was their private things. God knows what happened. And if she cried on air, so what? I cried so many times in front of so many people. It's normal. We as women are a little more emotional. It's what makes us women. We're not men. It's okay. We have women and men on this planet. Let's accept each other's differences. And she went through a normal thing. And you know what? To me, a person who can cry is a good person. Because if you can't shed a tear, then I'm worried.
Exactly. Yes. And I think we all forget, again, it goes back to Meg's point of us being able to experience things in private. And Britney experienced her first heartbreak, her first love, this big breakup in the public eye. And, the rest of us were able to do that and seek kind of comfort from our friends and cry in private. Britney, meanwhile, was being, she had to go to an interview and things like that. So we didn't even give her the ability to mourn that relationship, which is a totally human, reaction to a breakup.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I got to ask, currently, what's happening now? I believe, Leanne, you went to that public hearing that just happened yesterday or day before yesterday?
Yes, it was on Thursday.
On Thursday. And that's, go ahead.
It's, I like to say a whole lot of nothing happened, just because in November of 2020, so just a few months ago, it was determined that a bank called Bessemer Trust Company is going to come in and split responsibility with Jamie Spears, Britney's father. So the two of them will each have, control of her estate, her money. Since then, Jamie's attorneys have filed objections, and they wanted to kind of split up the power differently and all of this. So at Thursday's hearing, the judge basically overruled those objections and said Bessemer Trust Company and Jamie Spears will be co-conservators and will be sharing equal power over Britney's estate. So it was a small victory for us, because it means that Jamie Spears is not the only one in control anymore. He has been the sole conservator now for almost 2 years. So that was a great kind of step forward, but it didn't change things as much as we would have hoped. And of course, it goes back to that same point that this conservatorship was always unwarranted and the entire thing should be dissolved.
Yes, I agree. And I think, a good thing would be for everyone, whoever can maybe leave supportive messages on her IG or anything where we can raise awareness. Hey, free Britney, use the hashtag free Britney so we can raise awareness. I'm glad that after the documentary, a lot of public personas, a lot of celebrities have spoken out to her defense, right?
Yeah, it's been incredible to see. We'd had very limited support from celebrities before the documentary, and now it was like everyone was talking about it and saying free Britney. But we need to take it a step further and turn that into action. And so we actually have a website. The URL is freebritney.army. And on the website, there is a page filled with action items of how people can help support the movement and support Britney getting out of the conservatorship. I've seen a lot in the media. A lot of people are covering the media's involvement and Justin Timberlake apologizing and all these different things, which I do appreciate. But we also need to remember that at the end of the day, Britney Spears is still in a corrupt conservatorship, and that we need to take real action in order to affect change for her.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you mentioned that. And you said the URL is freebritney.army?
Yes.
freebritney.army. Okay, I encourage all our listeners to look it up for humanity's sake, if nothing else. You don't even have to be a fan. For humanity's sake, this is a woman trapped, a woman who doesn't deserve this. And if I was trapped, I would love support. So if any one of us was trapped, we would love support. Yeah, she would love support.
You hit the nail on the head. This is a human rights issue. It is not just an issue for people who love Britney Spears. So anyone should go and learn more. And it also, conservatorship abuse affects thousands of people across the nation. So it's a big issue in our country, and it's something that we really need to affect change for and reform our probate court laws.
Yes, you're right about that, Leanne. Go ahead, Meg. Go ahead.
I'll just say, going off of that point, is that this issue is kind of systemic. It is, I'm going to plug a documentary that if anyone can check out, it's called The Guardian. I believe it's on Amazon. It was done by a filmmaker named Billy Mintz, and it actually looked into Las Vegas and the probate system there. And the fact that this abuse is happening, it generally tends to affect elderly people, those who are disabled. Britney, it was kind of like a special circumstance. It doesn't generally happen to a 26-year-old, but again, she had a lot of money, and it generally these people will have huge amounts of money or really lucrative careers or businesses or property, and these systems allow this sort of injustice to happen. So beyond Britney, our first goal, of course, the reason we're all so passionate and involved is for Britney. But beyond that,
Yes.
I truly believe she'll be free. And then from there, we need to continue this fight, continue being loud and pressuring the court systems so this doesn't happen to our friends, family, parents, grandparents. As the baby boomers are getting older, they're becoming susceptible to this sort of abuse. So please do check out freebritney.army. Do some research on conservatorship abuse. And if you can, watch The Guardian, the documentary.
Amen. I agree. Thank you for mentioning all that. And it can be turned into a tool for abuse, emotional abuse. And especially, just when you're not free, you're emotionally abused right there and then. And I think that you're right. It affects people with estate, elderly, with estate, with money. If I'm dirt poor on the street, nobody's going to want to take care of me anyways, right? If it's done just for the benefit of me, quote unquote, if I wasn't rich or Britney or somebody with a large estate, all of a sudden, as we know in our personal lives, when you're famous, when you have things, you have all kinds of friends and enemies around. When you have nothing, there's nobody around. Nobody cares. So let's not pretend that he cares. There is definitely money involved, and that's a sinister motive. And I hope that, us here talking about it and more documentaries being made and more loud voices so that justice can prevail and we can free Britney at last. Now, Free Britney Army is large online, large following, I believe, correct?
Yeah, we've had hundreds of thousands of people sign petitions, various petitions that the movement has created to support Britney's freedom. And then we also actually hosted a virtual rally on Thursday during Britney's court hearing, and we maxed out our Zoom capacity and had 1,000 people attend. So
yeah, that's awesome.
It's been mind blowing. We had a virtual rally in December that had about 400 people, and we thought that was great. And the fact that we maxed out our Zoom limit was just honestly mind-blowing and incredible that there's so much interest in this.
That is absolutely beautiful. I'm happy to hear that. And we will continue. I will continue. You will continue. And, every once in a while, I write her an IG. We're with you. I'll send her a message on IG. I don't care who's reading it. I'm like, whoever's reading it, we will not let go. We will fight for Britney.
Yeah. So that's great.
Amen.
You have to put it out there, that positive energy. I do the same thing. I'm like, girl, your hair looks so pretty today. I don't know if she'll see it, but I think it's just good energy in the universe.
Yes, I even wrote to her boyfriend, Sam. I said, you better be on the right side of this. We're watching you. You want to be a hero in this. Help Britney, okay? Because
we appreciate you doing that. It's important, like Leanne said. It's important to keep the positive energy, keep the message out there, keep the pressure on people to be on the right side of history.
Yes, yeah, you're right. Bravo. Applause. I would applaud you. You're right. And it's like fighting for all of us. If my right is violated or her right it's like all our rights are violated. And just like we would want somebody to fight for us, we may be in some type of situation where we will need support. I will fight for her too. So we will definitely continue this and continue talking and fighting for her. Absolutely. And hopefully in the future, she can do a Las Vegas show. She can be healed and healed from everything she went through, She's not a circus animal. She doesn't have to perform. But I wanted to mention, even when she shaved her head, you know what that signified to me? I was watching the whole thing. And again, paparazzi was after her. She was being called out in the news about Justin and all that. And she shaved her head. To me, that symbolizes, I'm not an animal. I'm going to shave I don't want to be attractive to you. I don't want you to write about me. I don't want you to take your SHIT out of me. I just want to be free. That's what it signified to me.
Yes, I think that's true, and it's worth mentioning that prior to shaving her head, she dyed her hair very dark. She had like dark brown, black hair. And she did want to, in my opinion, kind of tarnish that image. I'm not your beautiful blonde girl that you want to market. I'm just a woman who has a right to dye my own hair. And when that didn't work, then she thought, well, I'm going to shave it off. And I think that was her attempting to kind of take control of the situation, and I applaud her for it.
I applaud her for it too, and it's normal. And you know what? Even during this COVID situation or any kind of situation, we should be, all of us in this world, be encouraged to think more for ourselves. When we turn on the TV and any story that gets covered, the news anchor almost tells us what to think. Oh, today this and this and this. And if we don't turn our mind on and critical thinking, then we buy into it, and it may be wrong, completely wrong. So positive thinking, like you said, and critical thinking is encouraged, and to be able to help everybody who's being oppressed currently, and under stress of it all. Now, prior to Vegas, Britney performed in a lot of, you said, series after the conservatorship, and then all of a sudden it went dark, right? There was absolutely no performance. Since when? When did she stop performing? Do you remember?
She had her Vegas residency ended in 2018. Well, I guess the tour. And then she had announced, there was an announcement for her next Las Vegas residency in October of 2018. But then it was canceled abruptly in January 2019. So we think really she had stopped working at the end of 2018. We just didn't have complete confirmation of that until later in 2019.
Yep, because she probably saw, it's like, I'm in a catch-22. This guy is going to keep spending my money. I'm going to be performing. I don't have freedom. Like, I got to do something. I mean, who wants that?
It was a good time to do it too, because like Leanne said earlier, Britney is not the one signing these work contracts. So if she were to try to fight the conservatorship during the residency, it could have been bad or led to more litigation and things like that. So I think she chose her timing for that reason, and probably also because her kids are older now and have cell phones and can call their mom whenever they want to, instead of her having to rely on other people to get access to her children as often. So I think there were a number of things contributing there, but she definitely, I think she didn't want to work, and she was boycotting, and then her father forced her into the mental health facility that she was in from January through April of 2019, or maybe May. And so, there's still a lot of control happening, and a lot of probably forced medication as well.
Yeah, I agree. That's the feeling I have too. And I would say, our dear listeners, if you in the future, because he might put up a fight and say, hey, she's, crazy. And we all know she's not crazy. And I'm so happy to speak on that. And I had a show on that where I was put on Xanax and Zoloft, right? Just the 2 cocktails. And they wanted to put me on a third one. For what? Just because I had blood clots in my lungs and I couldn't breathe and I was afraid. That's all, I didn't need to be on a cocktail that could kill a horse, and, that's exactly what I feel could be happening. And even if you see something, hey, in my heart, what I would love to see is for her to just be in loving care. And I believe even if she's on meds, she can heal. When I was on my meds, I was barely coherent. I couldn't have dreamed of doing this show. I remember when I started, I was still getting off. I had a hard time talking. And now here I am talking and comprehending everything. And so if she's on any kind of cocktails, the brain heals. I've done a show on this. The brain heals, but you have to be in with good people. You have to be surrounded by love and support, and not, scrutinized for everything you do. And I believe that's going to be the key for her.
Definitely. I think that she has proven her resilience. This woman has been under this conservatorship for 13 years, and to still to have the conviction to want to fight and stand up for herself and go on work strike and refuse to work. And, regardless of what's been done to her, she's a human, and we can help her heal, and she can have a support system, whether it's family or therapy, or if she does need medication, that's fine. Some people, I'm on medication, we all have our experiences. I think that Britney, once she's free of the constraints of this conservatorship, will absolutely continue to heal and to go back to her authentic self, which I do think has been, her authentic self has been silenced because of this conservatorship.
Amen. That's a good point. That's a good verbiage, authentic self. Yeah, I agree with you. And she will be back to normal. And first of all, be, with her kids, with her mom. And then if she decides to entertain us in the future, please, we love her so much.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine the support she'll get if that's what she wants?
Oh my gosh.
If she's listening, Britney, do what you want. But if she comes back, like the whole world, everyone's going to want to see her because people are realizing how poorly she was treated and she wasn't respected. And now that people are starting to have some sympathy for her, I think a comeback will be monumental.
Yes, we love her so much, especially even more now. What a victory. Maybe movies will be made later about her story, after the fact. And a victory of spirit, victory of courage, victory of public support, a victory of all us growing up and not being little kids and taunting someone just because they're a celebrity, right?
Mm-hmm. Amen.
And and all that. And we grow as humanity, as a human family. I think that's what we need to keep in mind. We are a human family, and everybody deserves equal rights, and nobody deserves to be made fool out of, with no conservatorship and no ulterior motives. And I hope that's exactly what's going to happen in Britney's case. And I hope for a definite victory. Now, Leanne, is there a court case coming up, or is this it for a while?
We do. We have a court case on March 17th, so we have just about a month. And that will be discussing some of the accounting and the finance aspect of the case. So we're hoping to have an in-person rally outside the courthouse and to just keep that pressure on the court.
When is that?
To remind them.
March what?
March 17th. Yes, it is St. Patrick's Day, actually. And we will be out there rallying and just raising, using our voices to fight for Britney.
I am coming. Mark my words. I'm coming and meeting you all and bringing whoever.
Oh my gosh, we would love that.
I am coming.
We would definitely love that.
I am coming. I can't wait. Well, girls, this has been a great show. I really hope for Britney listened, we'll love you so much. And we're going to get through this. We're going to fight for you. And don't give up. This is the end of the show. I want to thank you for being with me. I want to thank you for raising awareness. You've been great.
Thank you for having us, Violetta. We appreciate it and hope to see you in March.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You'll see me. If I'm alive, I'm there. All right, you guys. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Thank you, girls, so much. And again, please support Britney, even if it's a hashtag. Support this woman. She needs us right now. I love you all. Have a beautiful weekend. Let's fight for humanity. Amen, girls. Goodbye, everyone.
Amen.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Our Reality, hosted by Violetta Frankovic. Live every Saturday from the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. For more information on the host as well as the show, as well as upcoming guests, please check out our reality show page at kcorradio.com.
Our reality.
From the ordinary to the extraordinary, we've got you covered. Our Reality, changing the world, one topic at a time. This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital